Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Jalim's Storytime. My name is Jess, otherwise known by the author moniker Jalim, and today I will be continuing on with my reading of The Blood King, a trilogy series that I began some time ago and am quite eager to have it out there. So if you have not listened to the prologue or chapter 1 that I've done in the previous 2 episodes, I highly recommend you go back and listen to those ones first before you continue listening on to this one, because it is a continuous story that is being read out. So beginning at episode 4 of Storytime, if you have missed out on the previous episodes. If you are back again to continue listening, welcome back. I hope you are enjoying the story so far. And without further ado, here is the next chapter of The Blood King. 2. Dimitri stood before the small Blue Valley High School in a depressing state. He had avoided places like this for as long as he could remember. He disliked being told facts about things he had lived through himself or things he had watched be discovered, only to be told a different story. He believed he had learned all he needed to know through experience, and while his siblings disagreed, there had never been anything wrong with the way he lived his life before. Sighing heavily, he stepped forward with his messenger bag and walked through to the office. Lawrence had informed him that he had been a last-minute enrolment for the new school year, and after a week of sitting at home, Dimitri had finally decided to show up, considering he was bored out of his mind. The receptionist, an older lady, looked up as he entered. "I'll be right with you, dear. Just take a seat." Dimitri did as told, seeing no other option available to him than to just leave, which would result in more boredom. Hearing the clip-clopping of heels approaching, Dimitri diverted his attention to the door as a blonde bombshell stepped through. Ripped black skinny jeans and a pale blue blouse adorned her figure as she approached the desk. "Ah, Ashley dear," said the receptionist, "here to pick up the events list?" "Of course," she spoke lightly with a kind smile. Dimitri rolled his eyes. She may have been incredibly beautiful, but the last thing he needed was a charity worker. "Here you go, dear. It's listed by date. Be sure to return it as soon as possible," said the receptionist. "Of course, Mrs. Finnegan," said Ashley. "All right, dear. I take it you are Mr. Frey?" asked the receptionist. She looked disapproving, a look Dimitri was more than familiar with. He tended not to let it bother him unless he was in a particularly foul mood. Luckily, this woman had caught him on a good day. Dimitri stood and stepped past the blonde charity worker to the desk. "That would be correct. Your observational skills are astounding," said Dimitri with a charming smile. "And clearly your perception of time is not," said the receptionist, unimpressed. "We expected you a week ago, though your guardian did warn us of your attitude towards education." Dimitri smirked. "What is life without a few mishaps and spontaneity?" The receptionist smiled grimly before handing Dimitri his schedule and locker number. "Ashley dear, would you mind showing Mr. Frey around?" The blonde, who had been sifting through the paperwork she had been given in the corner, looked up in surprise, her brown eyes peeking through red-rimmed glasses. Of course." She quickly placed the papers in her bag and stood holding out her hand. "Ashley Sandley." Dimitri hesitantly took her hand as he swept his papers off the desk. "Dimitri." She seemed taken aback by his appearance, and she stared at him entranced. Feeling slightly uncomfortable, Dimitri averted his own gaze to the locker number. "Locker 372, he asked. "What?" she asked, her eyes looking at him in confusion. "That's my locker number, 372. "Do you mind showing me there?" he asked. She blushed slightly, embarrassed as she looked down and away to speak. "Of course, follow me." She was silent as Dimitri followed her out into the hallways. He was used to getting looked at like that. He knew he was attractive. His condition seemed to make all of his kind that way. Lawrence had deducted that it was because their prey were more physically drawn to it. Dimitri didn't care, as long as he got fed, but looking good had been an advantage on more than one occasion. Ashley weaved her way through the crowd with ease, leading Dimitri to what he knew was the north wing of the school. While the school had certainly increased in size since the last time the brothers had descended upon the country town, the north wing had been one of the original buildings. Though, admittedly, it was not the same building he remembered. 6 decades can really change a place. Ashley climbed a staircase and pointed to a locker. "That's it there," she said. "Can I look at your schedule?" Dimitri handed it over as he entered the code, and the locker door swung open, revealing his books for his classes. "Your first class is up another floor and down the main hall. Should be easy enough to find," she said. "Thanks," said Dimitri. "All right. Have a nice day, Dimitri Frey," she said. Dimitri watched after her as she left, unsure of whether she had said his full name because she didn't wish to have a strong association with him, or if she was trying to be cute. His name had sounded intriguing when it had left her lips. His gaze left her as he shook the feeling away from himself, only to feel a chill run down his spine as his gaze landed on another girl. She was perhaps 16, but she was clearly no stranger to his world and what he was. Her eyes held disgust as she glared at him from across the hall. Dimitri couldn't help it when he smirked at her, amused at her disdain for him as he turned back to his locker. He knew it probably wasn't wise to simply ignore her like the child she was, but then she wouldn't do anything without her elders' permission. That was just the way her kind worked. It was foolish of them to defy covenant law. Smirking at her continuing glare, Dimitri slammed his locker door shut and walked casually down the hall as if he had no cares in the world. "Careful with that look, witch. Your face might freeze that way." The remainder of the school day passed quickly for Dimitri. He found no joy in his classes apart from the fantasies he dreamed up, which usually consisted of either him proving his teachers wrong, they were honestly incompetent, or of the little blonde bombshell that had shown him around that morning. He decided through the course of the day that the charity worker thing was kind of hot. Strapping his messenger bag to his body, Dimitri straddled his bike, preparing to leave. "Do you have a death wish, Frey?" asked the little witch he'd teased earlier in the day. She seemed overconfident for someone with such dull eyes. She looked like an old, creepy porcelain doll, though without the porcelain. Another part of being human that Dimitri didn't miss: acne. "I don't know how much you know about my kind, but perhaps I should inform you that I'm already dead," said Dimitri. "Having a death wish isn't exactly high on my priority list anymore." The witch scoffed. "You've got some real nerve showing up on Capricorn territory without your sister." "Yes, well, she currently has more important things to do than play chicken with you lot," said Dimitri. "But by all means, if you think she won't send you to the pits of hell if you harm her brothers, go ahead. I'm right here." The witch did nothing but glare at Dimitri, and he smirked. "I suggest you leave the big talk to your elders. Maybe you'll learn something useful." Dimitri started his bike as the witch spoke. "They have spoken, have you not? They're going to unlock the binding." Dimitri revved his bike loudly. "What's that? I can't hear you." Then he took off, leaving the witch behind. But Dimitri knew exactly what she had said, and she knew it. The binding, thought Dimitri. A step towards leaving already, and we only just got home. Well, that was chapter 2 of The Blood King from the Frey Desolation series. I hope you enjoyed it. Join me next time for chapter 3. I look forward to hearing what you have to say so far about The Blood King. See you next time.